Hello. Today we're going to look at Think Question 2 for Frederick Douglass. So here's the question. As you can see, I have the text on the left side and the question over here on the right. Um, the question reads, what parallels or similarities do you see between the books Douglass reads and his own life? Cite textual evidence from the excerpt to support the similarities you find. So as we scan the text, it's paragraph 2 where we see the title of a book that he was reading, The Columbian Orator. And this whole paragraph, if you read through it, it's about a dialogue between a master and slave. And so this paragraph describes the content of the book. But in paragraph 3, we can see the effect that the book had on Douglass. So I'm going to just read a little bit of this so that we can start to formulate our answer. I met with one of Sheridan's mighty speeches on and in behalf of Catholic emancipation. Remember, emancipation means freeing of the slaves. These were choice documents to me. So that is a fancy way of saying these documents really appealed to me. I read them over and over again with unabated interest. He never stopped being interested in them, no matter how many times he read them. They gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul. So what he really firmly believed in, he saw in the dialogue, which had frequently flashed through my mind and died away for want of utterance. He didn't know how to say these things, but it was written there in the book. Okay, and so it goes on. So now let's go over to our question. And so the first part of the RACES model, so we're going to restate the question. So let's go ahead and start typing that. The parallels or similarities. Did I spell parallels wrong? Yep, I forgot to know. Oh, look, it popped up there. The parallels or similarities between the books Douglass reads and his own life are, and so why don't we just go ahead and go right into the A of the RACES model. So we're going to answer the question, are that he reads books about slavery. In particular, he read the Columbian Orator that had a dialogue between a master and his slave. Oops. Here we go. All right, so here we have the answer. Slave, which really impressed him. And if we wanted, we could go on to write impressed him so much that he read the book over and over and over again. So now let's find some evidence. So these were choice documents to me. I read them over and over again with unabated interest. They gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul. All right, this is a quote that shows the similarities to his life. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it here. I'm going to introduce my quote. He wrote, they gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul. And notice we're not finishing the quote, so I'm going to put 3 dots. And now I need to explain why I chose this quote. So they gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my own soul. This quote shows that what was written in the book directly related to his own situation of being a slave. I'm going to continue my thought. they gave interesting thoughts of my own soul. He you know what, I'm not going to, because I'm actually moving on to the second quote. So I'm gonna now move into the second quote. In addition, comma, oops, spelled that wrong. In addition. So now let's look for another quote. There are so many here, but I really liked the second half of the sentence, which had frequently flashed through my mind and died away for want of utterance. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. In addition, he stated, and so since it's the middle, I'm going to put 3 dots, which had frequently flashed through my mind and died away for want of utterance. This is the end of the sentence, so I can go ahead and put a period. He explains, let's put Douglas instead of he. Douglas explains that he had often thought about the issues written in the dialogue, but due to either his age or lack of education, wasn't able to articulate. It's a fancy word meaning being able to say or say properly. Due to his lack of education, wasn't able to articulate his thoughts. But this book put into words everything about slavery that he had been thinking about. Okay, and so now I've given my 2 pieces of evidence and I've explained the evidence. So the final part of this is to put a summary sentence. So let's go ahead and summarize what we've done. Let's remember what we were explaining. The similarities of the books Douglas reads in his own life. Douglas was able at a young age to find literature that spoke to his condition and that paralleled what was going on in his life. Okay, so there's a great answer to the think question number 2. And of course, you know that I prefer if you would highlight your quotes. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight. And I'm going to find my second quote. I'm going to highlight that. Okay, and the last thing to do is let's look at the book's answer. As he befriends the street urchins who teach him to read, Douglas recalls that I used to talk this matter of slavery over with them. I would sometimes say to them, I wished I could be as free as they would be when they got to be men. You will be free as soon as you are 21, but I am a slave for life. Have not I as good a right to be free as you have? After he begins to read the Columbian Orator, Douglas finds a similar argument between master and slave, in which the slave in the book argues so persuasively against slavery that his master sets him free. The book helps Douglas to fully articulate, they use that word too, fully articulate his thoughts that had been running through his mind for years. The moral which I gained from the dialogue, he wrote, was the power of truth over the conscience of even a slaveholder, and it gave tongue to interesting thoughts of my soul. One thing about this answer that I do not like so much is the heavy use of text at the beginning. There's a huge quote here, and it ends with a quote instead of explaining it. So the book answer is fine. There's more than one way to answer these questions, but I would prefer some kind of summary sentence at the end. All right, so I hope this helps you, and stay tuned for Think Question number 3.